Well, thank you so much for coming along today. And there is a little bit of an interactive component to this presentation today. I just didn't want to make it just me talking to you. So I wanted really some involvement from you. All right, so my name is Catherine Newington, and I work for a company called ACS, which is the Australian Computer Society. We're the peak body for IT professionals. And what we've recently done over the last couple of years is include the support for IT professionals to include educators. So the ACS ICT Educators program that I run supports the implementation of the digital technologies curriculum right across Australia, and we connect with teachers everywhere. So some of the types of teachers that I've been connecting with is I'm working with a teacher in WA in a remote Indigenous community, and we're battling with trying to get our low literacy students really excited and trying to get them to code. I'm also working with another teacher up in Queensland who is just starting her new online school, and she's looking for support not only on the digital technologies curriculum, but also on some pedagogy too behind how you can use technology to really enhance learning experiences. We create and we build lessons and resources to help you unpack the curriculum. And one of the things that I love doing is helping teachers build a scope and sequence. So we also have just recently updated our platform to help connect teachers, and all of the resources that I speak about and so many more will all be found with our new platform. And I'll give you details to that platform towards the end of this presentation. So I just want to get to know you now. And I'd like you now to use the Menti on your, and just I just want to know a little bit about yourself. Are you a primary school teacher? Are you a secondary school teacher? Are you a classroom teacher? Or are you more of a specialist teacher too? So lots more primary school teachers. I actually come from a primary school teaching background myself. My last class was a grade 1-2s. Oh, lots of specialist DigiTech teachers. That's amazing. I've been working with some teachers to try and use robotics in some STEM classes. So over the course of this session, think about how I can support you in any areas that you need. And some classroom teachers too. Brilliant. All right. The next one is, how are you going with the DigiTech curriculum? So are you starting out with your journey? You're feeling pretty confident. Have you got a grasp of the curriculum and ready for more? And then the last one was, you're just exhausted for 2021, which I'm sure many, I decided just to put that one in. Starting out, feeling pretty confident, that's amazing. If you are feeling pretty confident about it, I'd love to be able to support you to go further with some of these ideas and really push the boundaries. If you're starting your journey, I can certainly help you at that starting point too. And for those people that are starting their journey, there's some of this is a little bit of the starting point to it. And if you are feeling pretty confident, then we can certainly support you there too. I'm always ready for more when it comes to the DigiTech curriculum too. Okay, so the first part of this little bit is looking at the use of technology in your classes. And what we need to be doing is really thinking about and putting ourselves first within this, I suppose, this little linear line that I've created on this PowerPoint. So what we have to do as educators, because we're the professional people in this, is when we're thinking about using technology, we've got to put our students first, and we have to understand our own pedagogies before we even think about the technology. This will allow us to work out what tool is going to be the best tool for you to use in your classroom. Unfortunately, one thing that I can't do is in this presentation give you a whole list of this works really well, because it will really depend on the students that you need to cater for. So, you know, the classes that I spoke about before, where we had a face-to-face Indigenous school in WA, and then in Brisbane we've got an online school, how they will use technology will be very, very different in their classrooms. The next thing that we have to consider is honouring the curriculum and understand how we can use that technology to fit in the requirements that we need to teach and assess. Then what we do is we find the technology to then decide how we're going to teach the curriculum and what resources we need. What a lot of teachers do is do the backwards of that. So they have this technology, they found this innovative platform, and they're trying to shove this technology into the curriculum to make it work. Whereas what we have to do is the opposite way, is looking at what we have to do as educators and finding the right tool for the job. And so I find that some teachers, when they are looking for it, is that they're always trying to find that new best thing to use. When we're using technology, we're really aiming to engage the learning, not the technology too. So really think about always finding that right tool for the job that you're doing. So one of the things is when you are evaluating that technology is think about it from the pedagogy standpoint. So I thought about, some questions that we can ask ourselves, and also bring some of these type of questions to your staff when they are looking for technology. I've recently been working with some graduate teachers who are making that assumption. They're using mobile devices, and they're making the assumption of they're trying to find an app to fit into everything. So they want an app for mathematics, they want an app for this, and they really want almost the technology to do the teaching for them, which is not going to work because the technology hasn't been created around our students and it hasn't been created around our curriculum. So when you are at that stage where you're starting to get a little bit excited, you found some technology, have a think about it from your own standpoint and think about how this technology marries with your own pedagogy. My personal pedagogy and in that grade 1-2 class was always about exploring and getting the students to articulate their thinking. And I was always looking for technology to accommodate for those individual differences in my students too. So one of the questions that you can look at when you are evaluating the technology is how and does the technology actually accommodate for any individual differences? I know differentiation is a big area in teaching, and we have to make sure that that technology marries with that pedagogy. And if it doesn't, it's okay to say no to the technology because it's not the right fit for you or your students. The curriculum one too. So can this technology be used across other subject areas? If you answer no to that question, it's okay, but I want you to be aware of that there might be some technology that would be great to use across lots of different areas, and then you kind of get a bit of bang for your buck. And so you're able then to utilize that technology across the borders. It's a lot to invest in technology, and we want to just make sure that you get the best output for it. If it is a technology that is just in one particular area, that's okay, but you're aware of the limitations of that technology. Assessment and feedback is a big thing in schools at the moment. And one thing, whenever I was testing some technology, it could have been a website or a platform, I wouldn't go through and tick the right answers. I tick the wrong answers to see how the technology is supporting the learning. And if I was using a platform and the students got a wrong answer and it just gave a cross and moved on, then I evaluated, well, does that technology actually support incorrect answers and help the students learn even more and really guide them towards the right answer? If we're using technology just to give a raw number at the end of it, how can we as educators support the growth of that learner too? Do we get a result of which ones they got right or wrong, or is it just a blank score at the end of it? And how do we use that numerical value to then go, well, one student got 10 out of 10 and another one got 8 out of 10 and another student got 2 out of 10. What else is that giving us information to support student learning? The interface and design of it too. So this can be animation and music, and making sure that the use of animations and movement and music can be switched off and controlled by the user too. So if there's music that's going on in the background with the technology, you need to think about whether it's actually right for the learner too, because it can be distracting and it can actually impede learning too. So a lot of the times we get so caught up with the bells and whistles of technology that we forget that we're using this technology to gain in learning, not engagement of the bells and whistles. So, if it is basic, it's okay. It's about engaging that learning, remember. And the usability, this one is always a big one for me. There is that time where you do need to provide students with the skill-based and give them time to learn, to navigate, but how well can they use that program and the platform independently after their first use. If they're still struggling with it a little bit, then really consider, is that the right technology for you? Next slide now is I want you to think of, do you have, and I went briefly over technology and using it, do you have any particular burning questions that you have about using just as more of the ICT in classrooms? I was reflecting on this question, and one thing that I find with teachers is that we're always looking for, you know, the next best technology. Say you're using Kahoot, and some teachers have asked, I want to use a platform that's like Kahoot to ask more questions. Is there something else I can use? Think about, from that point of view, is the skill, the time that it's going to have to increase the skills of using a new platform that is going to give you the exact output of that you had before. Another little burning question that I've always thought of is, how can you, like, how long do you take for the skill set to come in? And one thing that worked really well for me in the classroom was getting students just to play with any new technology on their own. And so they would have the first like 10 minutes just to explore. And when students are learning that on themselves, they start to collaborate. They learn so much than what you could tell them in that first 10 minutes. Does anyone have any questions at all? Brilliant, we'll keep going then. Okay, so this next part of the presentation is going to be looking at specifically integrating the digital technologies curriculum. And this is something that I'm extremely passionate about and really try to support teachers with doing, because I really believe that we can't just have a DigiTech isolated lesson, and especially for those STEM teachers too, we're looking at how we can incorporate that DigiTech into STEM. When I talk about this from a primary school point of view, it's really about maximising how many different curricular areas we can almost push into one really rich assessment task for the students to do. And it allows us to use that one task to report on many different curriculum areas. From a secondary school point of view, it's more about providing them with relevant understanding of real world uses of technology, and then kind of bringing that more into the classroom rather than just standalone one coding lesson and that's it. So whenever I'm planning with a teacher or thinking about how technology can be used across the curricula, is that I always start to think about the impact of technology as us as adults and users, and how technology has changed and supported our own growth as humans. We then want to bring in the real life examples for those students and then adapt them to our classroom to meet those curriculum needs. So I'm always looking for real life examples of technology, articles, videos, and then being able to adapt that, bring it into my classroom for my students. When we look at it from that point of view, we're allowing our students to explore real life scenarios of technology and creating that authentic learning for them. It almost then starts to answer that question that we always have, why am I learning this? Because they can see that there's a connection between what's happening in the real world and with what they're learning in the classroom too. And so then that's the relevance, and you know, they're learning about different topics and they're seeing that connection. And again, especially in that STEM scenario, that we can see how each of those letters in STEM can really form and create that really great task that they will complete. So then one of the big questions that I always ask myself when I'm planning is, how has technology influenced that particular topic? So if you're trying to integrate it into a science lesson, how has technology influenced science? And we think about it from, I know they use drones to watch over cattle. So we've got this great opportunity to problem solve on farms. Biological science, there's been some amazing videos that looks at technology that is used to track animals, and we use that to collect data too. So whenever I am supporting a teacher, that is probably the big question that I ask myself. And it's when I ask that question, I can start seeing the connections of our DigiTech curriculum with other learning areas and with the wider world of what's going on. It's then providing those meaningful examples to teach not only the DigiTech curriculum, but teach other curricular areas at the same time. The little video here that won't be able to, this is a video, this is an image, so I won't be able to click on it, but this is probably one of my favorite videos and most inspiring videos too. It's called Project Daniel, Not Impossible. And if you want like a bit of a tearjerker video, I definitely recommend watching this one. It's such an inspiring story that this particular person found out that a lot of people in South Sudan were losing limbs because of the bombs going off with the war that was happening at the time. And Daniel, who is the person that you see in the picture there, he unfortunately at the age of 12 or 13 lost both of his arms. And for 3 years, he wasn't able to do any of the tasks. So imagine what that would be like, that you wouldn't be able to dress yourself, to feed yourself, or to do any of those tasks. So the producer of this video went to South Sudan and came in with 3D printers, a lot of plastic, and some computers and laptops. And he actually started building from 3D printed arms for those people that had lost their arms. And then what I really like about the video is that in such a short amount of time, you can see that they've identified a problem and then looked at ways to solving it. But throughout that little bit, you can see that they go back and keep trying different things too. So there's a lot of that, you know, the creative thinking and the critical thinking that's going on in this real life scenario. And you see the moment where Daniel is able to feed himself for the first time in 3 years, and this little, very subtle smile comes on his face. And it's just inspiring the way that technology has been used in that real purpose to help someone and the common good. If I was to describe or have that video that I want students, my students and our students to look at technology, it would be that potential, and just seeing how technology can be used for the common good and for ways that is impacting people's life for the positive. So the next one then, when I am thinking about making those connections, I ask myself a couple of different questions. So you may already have that unit of work that you want to start connecting the digital technologies curriculum to. So have a look and ask yourself, is there any room to look at any hardware or software on technology on this particular topic that you have? So think about like geography. And I do have examples further down in a couple of slides too, is that when we look at geography, I know in the grade 5-6 curriculum, there's you know, things about natural disasters and planes and things like that. Well, we use technology as ways to support those natural disasters and ways to help us connect and, you know, put those alarms that go out a little bit earlier to help everyone. And so is there any technology that is there supporting that particular content description or topic from the curriculum? Is there any data that can be collected? And as soon as you start collecting data, then you've also got that opportunity to present it in spreadsheets in that digital format. And then whatever project are they working on, can they use technology and a platform to do a collaborative online project instead of maybe the typical poster, the hard copy poster? Can we get our students to maybe complete that task online and working together in an online environment? The next one, and I'm always, I love this one too, is design. Is there room for students to design something new? I was looking at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And, you know, I got up to the stage where it was when he was in the invention room, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be awesome to do that and get current technology, and what could we recreate and bring Willy Wonka's chocolate factory into the 21st century? Some of the designs that the students came up with was awesome. There was one where it was a candy coat, and each pocket was specifically designed for different types of candy. And then they had to make sure that the technology part of it was keeping each pocket at a certain temperature. So if you had fudge in one pocket, you'd want it to be warm and squishy. And then the other one is you wouldn't want to have your hard-boiled lollies to overheat and mush all together. So it all came from them. And it's amazing when we give students that opportunity to design something, that really those creative processes start really starting to take place for them. The next one then is, what about robotics? Can we use any robotics or programming as a method to solve a problem, or can we include robotics in there too? And the problem solving side of things, is there a problem based on a specific theme that the students can solve? And can they solve that problem with technology? And when we are looking at solving those problems, how can that solution help the school community and the wider community too? All of those, the little questions that I've got there, align with the digital technologies curriculum. So if you've answered yes to any of those, you're starting to implement the digital technologies curriculum into other learning areas. I used that same process when I was working with a teacher, and she asked me to create a unit of work that integrated Harry Potter. That was a tricky one, and a challenge accepted, certainly did it. And what I looked at was, I haven't watched the Harry Potter movies for a very long time, but I do remember the scene where they had the map, the mystical map, and I was like, oh, that's great, we can put some algorithms into it. The design side of it came with designing something new for Harry Potter, and doing some magical things too. So it could be like, well, he's got the invisibility cloak, what else could we make for him, and how could we use technology and the DigiTech curriculum to kind of support that thinking for the students? So I'm going to go through a couple of different ideas that take you through the curriculum and show you how you can adapt it to different areas. So these two here are for Foundation to 2. And fairy tales and the 3 ways of thinking, I was thinking about Rapunzel and the story. And instead of the prince climbing up the princess's hair, what about if we got the students to draw a new digital solution that gets the prince up there a little bit quicker and doesn't cause pain on Rapunzel? Teachers have loved that idea. And again, it's just really subtle ways to introduce that DigiTech curriculum to other areas. Another one is for healthy eating. And what happens if we had a robot that would do your food shopping for you? How could you program your bot to only pick up healthy foods? That was a Bbot. We use Bbots for that one, and we just had the Bbot map, and the students then created different healthy and unhealthy foods, put them on the mat, and then it took the robot around. But again, you know, robots in our society do so many things that are automated. Why don't we bring that into the classroom for our Foundation to Year 2 students? The next one is this for 3-4. They were looking at biology and looking at animals. And again, mentioning before when we spoke about the digital technologies and how, you know, there's technologies and trackers and things like that that they use for endangered species. There are so many apps and digital solutions to help build those, the sustainability for animals. And we had a full day of it where the students then looked at current technologies, looked at how it was supporting animals. And this came in when they were doing their own inquiry to their own animal, and they, you know, we got them to create a digital solution that would support the animal that they had already investigated for that term. It was just adding that extra little layer onto the end of it and really getting students to think about how technology is helping in society. Another one where we looked at using robotics for perfect plants and looking at how we can monitor plant growth using robotics. And so this can be done without robotics if you wanted to, but we've got some robotics that you can do is capture the temperature and gather the data using robotics and look at the temperature and the soil moisture and other things like that to collect data. Evaluate that data and interpret that data to find out the best place to plant your plant in the school for maximum plant growth. Then we also said, well, what about if, because the sun goes down and changes, and then we got the students to design a new tech-inspired greenhouse that were on wheels, and each time it got too hot, it would move into the sun, and if it didn't get enough light, then it would move into the sun. So it was a really great way, again, to see how technology is used for that plant growing and support. The next one then that we had is, this is one of my favorite activities that I've done with some robotics, is that we've got, you can make a shape table that you could then use as a prototype to test buildings to see if those buildings can withstand earthquakes. One of the interesting things as teachers, we always have that one student who just didn't quite make the mark. And we were making these structures out of spaghetti and marshmallows. And I said to her, oh, would you live in a structure like this? And she said to me, yes, Miss Newington, because I like marshmallows and spaghetti. Not the idea of what a prototype is. And I don't think that you'd want to live in a house that's made with spaghetti and marshmallows. So didn't quite hit the mark on that one, but she understood that prototypes were used to test designs and then keep going with it. There is a brilliant company out there called Block by Block, which is a non-profit organization that uses Minecraft to give people in low socioeconomic areas a voice on how they would design their community. So then the students then follow the same process of Block by Block and use Minecraft to redesign an area. Really great project for understanding, the use of design for Minecraft, but also collaboration with it too. The next one is, if you're looking, this is now for secondary schools, and if you're looking for getting connected, and I know that internet and that hardware and the access and the transmission of data is something that can be a really dry topic to teach. But what about if we put it into a real life scenario? The inspiration for this particular idea is that there were some teachers who had to go into lockdown and couldn't, and some of the students that were living in remote areas didn't have internet access, so they had to physically mail out lesson plans for the term and lesson activities. And this gave me an idea that there are still communities in Australia that don't have access to the internet, and therefore they don't have that connection that we have. So what about if we teach it in that point of view and going, how can we give these communities access to the internet, and how would you design and support that community? So the students then learn about using internet speeds and networks and hardware and what's the best thing for a particular community, and they redesign their community in Minecraft and take you through everything that they've learned over that term. I learnt about that there was marine scientists have been using social data they've been using social data to collect data on marine animals. So rather than going out into the field, there are scientists out there that are using our social media data to identify fish, to see where they've been, where they're breeding. They've even been able to identify new breeds of fish just by collecting social media data on Twitter and Instagram. They use the hashtags to collect all of the data, and then they're obviously collating it. But we use that same idea to get students looking at social media, learning about spreadsheets, and then doing that design part at the end where they go, well, from what you've learned for that whole process, if you were that marine scientist, how could you get other people to help you collect data? What would you need in your platform? Then the next one we have, this is for year 9s and 10s, is that creating a podcast. Rather than just going out and do it, what about if we create a survey to understand your stakeholders, to then understand what are the best topics to include in your podcast. You can also go through the hardware and software that's managed from it. And then the last one would be then creating entrepreneurs. So identify a problem that your students have within the community and create a digital solution to help them with that. And what would that whole process look like? We've actually completed a full unit on the one of creating entrepreneurs, and we had some students who just really wanted a Bunnings sausage and didn't know where the local ones were, and sometimes they'd go to Bunnings and it'd all be sold out. So they created an app that would tell you where the Bunnings sausages were and then how many were left over, which, you know, it was a great idea, and it's something that they have ownership with and something that would interest them too. So one of the things that we have also done, this is a project that has been in collaboration with ACS and DLTV, is that we've got a lot of professional learning that looks at digital technologies across the curriculum. So we've looked into connecting it with mathematics. That was when we connected with the Maths Association of Victoria and looked at how we could use algorithms, data collection too, as you're starting off and moving you through a little bit of a process. So if you're those teachers that are at that stage where you're ready for more, then we can certainly provide you with that article. We also looked at integrating it with PE. Yes, it can be done. And we also then had if you're interested in looking at ICT in the primary school PE classes, we went through different types of platforms that you might be able to use within your classroom. We've also looked at the arts and looked at how you could start to include binary code into arts and looking at the RGB. Another one was making music and using robotics to make music and using software programs. Really great, especially if you don't have musical instruments with you. Geography, we looked at and we identified some virtual excursions that you might be able to go on, and where they might be able to support student learning using VR in geography classes too. As I said, each of the articles does do that, starting off, getting a little bit more confident and then going a little bit further with it. It does the digital technologies curriculum, and it also looks at a little bit of ICT. We matched it to the 5, 6 and the 7 and 8 curriculum, because then you have, as you're all expert teachers, I'm sure that if you have one of these ideas, I'm sure that you'd be able to modify it for your students. This little image here is taken from the new ICT educators platform that we launched this week. And we've collated all of different professional learning from across multiple platforms and put it in an easy one spot for you. And I've also matched the contents and the topics with the development of the curriculum too. So if you're looking for networks, it's the first topic that comes up there. It's a way to make identifying professional learning for you just that little bit easier. What's available now will always continue to grow. So then I want you, that was a lot of information to go through so quickly. And I want you now to have a think about what are your next steps for you, and what are you looking for, and how can ACS and DLTV help you continue your development and understanding and trying to put in the DigiTech curriculum. Absolutely, yes, I will be able to share. I've got the next slide after this one is all of the links. Does anyone need any help creating a scope and sequence for 2022? I'm going to be helping a couple of teachers create that scope and sequence. So please reach out if a scope and sequence is something that you might need help with, and then we can have a look at further unpacking some ideas for you. Is there a particular idea that you've always wanted to do? Scope and sequence planning? Yes, I can help you with that. Adding art and digitech. Oh, yeah. Yep. Help and see. Oh, I love that. Yep. Oh, integrating Mandarin. If I've been able to integrate digitech and Harry Potter, I am up for the challenge of Mandarin. don't know how successful we will be, but it's all about what is to start a podcasting. Yep. Yeah, so I've actually set up with the there are so many tech options. What I'm in the process of doing for those graduate teachers that I was talking about earlier is I've got a list of common apps that you use in Foundation and how you can then use those apps across the board. So like Seesaw might be one of them. And then how you can use Seesaw in different classrooms, and it's specific to their school with the apps that they've got. But I can certainly support you and help you with a list of those tech ones. Yeah, because if you've already got a suite of tech options already available to you, I can help you map out how you could further use those. I'm just having a look at I'm looking for resources for older secondary age students. And low ICT skills, anything along those lines. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a lot of ICT skill development support at the moment. I have tended to use more of the DigiTech curriculum. Yeah, I know. Help networking with local teachers would be great. Perhaps that's more of a DLTV thing. We use some of the ACS. Great. So our new platform gives you a much better way to connect with more teachers. And I think this might be something that DLTV, we might be able to help with. I'll just dob in DLTV here. With the podcasting one, I also had a look at lots of different hardware and software, and we got the students to evaluate the hardware and software, which one would be the best one. So it really brought in that the data transmission and which one would be the best one to use and which software program would be the best one to use. It's about, they've got that problem, they're going to solve it with DigiTech, and how can we keep moving forward with it? And that is, if you don't have a 7 and 8 scope and sequence, yeah, don't worry, I can certainly help you with that too. There's one school that I'm working with, and he wants to create a year of using robotics in that 7 and 8 as a scope and sequence. And I'd love to be able to do that and have robotics, say, microbits, but each term we pick a different focus of the DigiTech curriculum. So we might do in the first one, we'll do something with microbits, and we won't assess, say, the coding part of it, but we might get the students to really focus on the hardware and software and how it all kind of works all together to create that network. And then the next one, we might then focus on another area of doing something with, you know, collaboration. We haven't thought too much about it, but it's something that I'd really like to create, to have those options and look at how one robotics can be used across the whole curriculum. That's another challenge accepted for me too. Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry, I've only just seen the chat now because I didn't get a chance to see you guys. But this is the new platform that we have with all of those resources are in there ready to use. ACS has made our community of practice complimentary for teachers, so you don't have to pay for anything. The ACS membership is different to our ICT educators program, so it's all free and available to you. There's my email address there for you too, where if you would like to, please reach out. I know those people who, if you are in need of that scope and sequence, I am ready to support you and ready to build them together. There's also that dedicated forum area. And if you have any, it's a really great way to connect with teachers right across Australia. One thing that's great about this program is that we're not bound by state and we're not bound by sector. So we can really get that great interaction with lots of teachers. Also on the call right now is Jansen, who is my IT guru and has helped me with the new platform. So if you are joining at the moment and do have issues, I've got Jansen on the line ready to help.